And the zone acting phase. There it is. There it is. Welcome back to another episode of the Barber's Brief, where we say it's like around 20 minutes, but it kind of goes over. But we try to give you marketing and business news in about 20 minutes. Just quick shout out for all those who have subscribed to our newsletter. Thank you for doing so. Continue to do so. We basically repurpose a lot of the content that we share on this episode in a newsletter form. So love any feedback as well. Mark, we got in the news. What do we got going on?
Well, what would a week be without another Mark Ritson article? This one strikes home. So there was an article he wrote about effective ignorance has left America lagging behind the rest of the world in marketing. So I would say this applies to us too. Hey, Canucks out there, hey?
A little bit. Hey.
Yeah. So anyway, really interesting conversation, because he's saying Americans and Canadians generally are not participating in conversations like eSOV or distinctive assets, attention theory, 60-40 rule, mental and physical availability. Mm-hmm. I would say it's interesting because, as you know, you just started a job, by the way. Congrats.
Thank you. I am no longer unemployed.
It's exciting.
It is exciting.
I've been recently in my interviews talking to people about evidence and data-driven not being the same thing. And so people are like, oh, that's interesting. Tell me more. And so I start mentioning some of these things. And the general idea is like, oh, that's interesting theory. Like, no, it's not theory.
No.
And so in his article, Mark talks about the tenets of distinctiveness, the things I just mentioned. And it generally is not being accepted. I think overall, in the article he talks about, there's an idea of like American exceptionalism, where they're thinking like, that's interesting stuff, but that applies across the pond, not here. In general, you and I have looked for people we could interview in North America to talk about things like this, and there's few of them. Ty Heath, we've had on the show from the B2B Institute, Jon Lombardo and Peter Weinberg, Koen Pauwels, who's at an American school, but is an American by birth. And then we've had Roger Martin on. So it's interesting to see that there's Mark Ritson calling out the lack of evidence-based marketers and effectiveness conversations happening in America. And I think it's really just interesting because it's a reflection of the things that we've been finding too.
I couldn't agree more with his point of view on this, because I think we are waning a little bit, not a little bit, quite a bit. And we're not actually, taking part in some of these really important conversations. And, we were presenting last week, right? And we were talking a lot about these, and obviously they were well received by the audience, which is great. And the one thing the feedback that we got was, we've never heard this before, never thought about things like this before. But and for me, it's like, well, if we're marketers and we're spending time understanding all the trends and all the different things that are around us, we should be spending time on a lot of this literature that is 100% backed by evidence, and it's not theories. These are fundamental ways and approaches to become better.
Yeah, I posted yesterday on LinkedIn about the funnel. Like, I would say that's a theory.
Exactly. Yes.
But there's a whole bunch of other things that exist out there. I think there's 10 different theories of how consumers buy, and none of them are right. But there's a lot of evidence that shows facts around buyer behavior.
Yeah.
And so we just ignore some of the things because it's not useful or practical or familiar to us.
Exactly.
Like NPS is a theory, but the evidence shows it doesn't work.
But everybody loves NPS. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah. What do you got, V?
All my digital marketers out there. So it seems like there's more changes happening to the algorithms from Google's perspective. So especially on the organic side. So Danny Sullivan, who is Google's Search Liaison, has been quoted in saying that there are major changes coming to Google's search ranking algorithms. Now, they didn't release many details right now as to what is actually changing, but he goes on quote unquote record. At least he went on X. It's so weird to call it X, honestly.
I know, Twitter.
Formerly known as Twitter.
Yeah.
there's so much coming. I don't want to say buckle up, but that makes you freak out because if you're doing good stuff, it's not going to be an issue to you.
Yeah.
So it's probably looking to address a lot of the gaming of the system that exists,
Right.
and how to rank organically a lot higher. So it's trying to reward probably more those that do generate good content,
Hmm.
and reward them with probably more favorable results. So more to come on that, but I did want to highlight that there are changes coming.
Yeah.
What's
When you
next?
when you say I'm going to send a tweet, or do you send an X?
Sending an X. I'm going to send an
What's
X
the
to my
language?
ex. I don't
Uh,
know.
I got one of the things I thought was interesting when we had John Dawes on. He had mentioned an article he had recently published, um, looking at where brand growth potential comes from. So that I wanted to summarize that because it's really interesting. So in general,
Mm.
it's an academic paper, so this is not like pablum um, to read.
It
It's
doesn't
kind
sound
of
like 2 minute read.
yeah, yeah. Uh, so there's a general held belief in the 80-20 rule, so which says that in the Pareto principle, so 80% of your sales come from 20% of your customers. Byron Sharp previously had found that the top 50% of your sales comes from actually 20% of your customers, which means that the remaining 80% of your customer base, your light category buyers,
Hmm.
drive upwards of 50% of your sales, which is not nothing.
No.
So if you're looking to grow, you really need to think about how you're going to grow with your light category buyers. In addition to that, there's also some research that talks about how your heavy category buyers don't stay heavy forever,
Hmm.
and light category buyers in the future become heavy category buyers in the future. So it's really important to drive reach to those heavy buyers. So in this study, they looked at a simulation to try and figure out if they could predict the results from real uh, panel data on CPG buyers, in this case, the toothpaste category. And they found that the simulation using the double jeopardy law, there's a real fancy name for it in scientific models, but they use that law to figure out if they could predict how much growth is going to come from light buyers. And so their predictions matched reality,
Hmm.
um, which was that there are three main functions or four things you really have to think about when it comes to your sales potential. So you got to think about how many buyers in the category there are,
Right.
how much they buy, how
Hmm.
frequently they buy, and then what percentage of those buyers that you win from all category sales.
Right.
And so current heavy buyers represent a small-ish source of sales potential for a couple of reasons. One, that they're the minority of the buyers in the customer in any brand's customer base,
Hmm.
and that the second part is that the brand's customer base already gets a huge portion of their category purchase from heavy buyers, so you can't
Right.
do much more to make them buy more.
Right.
So in terms of your brand's room for growth over time, like say a 3, 4, 5 year time period, you really need to reach light buyers and non-category buyers to let them
Hmm.
know that you're in the category. Otherwise, they're just going to keep doing the things that they've done before.
Yeah. You know what I love about this? It's another one of those marketing myths busted.
Yeah,
The 20-80%, right? It's actually only 50%. And, when you have organization, this predates even like in my airline days where you want to make sure you're going back to that well. So for us, like business travelers was really
right.
important. So how you can get them to buy more, et cetera. And the reality is when you still looked at the total, um, I guess the total amount of guests that we would fly, the majority was still outside of the business travelers.
Yeah,
So it made more sense our communication probably to be structured around, the light buyers that maybe only travel once or twice a year
yeah,
versus doubling down on some of those, you know, uh, premium because they're going to travel anyways,
for sure.
you
Well, and
know?
you guys used to do WestJet.
Yeah,
You are WestJet V.
I am WestJet.
But I mean, that's a big part of the reason why you did the Christmas
Miracle.
campaign.
Yeah.
Also, a reason why you did like the April Fool's thing. Like, it wasn't
Yeah,
because there's heavy buyers buying it at those times. I mean, it makes sense because you reach a whole bunch of new category buyers.
totally. Totally.
What else you got?
Ooh, remember Y3000 Coca-Cola?
Yes.
Well, it's back.
Whoa.
So, the Las Vegas Sphere, remember when, they basically reformulated the Coke formula,
Yep.
whatever. So the Y3000, we had zero sugar. And as of November 13th, so I think yesterday, sorry, because we're recording on Tuesday, never mind. As of November 13th, the brand will transfer the sphere's exosphere
Yep.
and made it bring to life essentially like a futuristic landscape or cityscape that has been inspired again by the Y3000 AI cam. So
Hmm.
um, for me, I think like this is awesome. It's gimmicky. I love it though. Keep going, Coke. I love
Yeah.
this.
It's a really fun way to play on
Oh,
the AI idea.
I still haven't seen it in stores yet, but I will buy and try this reformulated Y3000. They got me. They got me.
Nice.
What do you got?
Uh, from the drum. So this isn't a new story, but it's new to me. I've recently applied to a job at Huge. Who knows if I'll
Mhm.
get it? But I thought
Anyone
this
from
was
Huge listening,
yeah,
make
right.
sure you pick up his resume.
This is really interesting because there's like I used to be an agency, and so and anybody I know, and we've worked with agency people, and the process of winning a new client is really interesting. You have an
Yeah.
RFP. The RFP basically says we're hand selecting, upwards of whatever. Let's say it's six
Hmm.
agencies to do work for us. So the agency is expected to submit a whole bunch of work. It's a ton of time, and they provide creative examples of what they're going to do. So they're essentially giving away ideas for free. Then if you get shortlisted, you get into this bidding war. And the bidding
Yeah.
war basically means you have to, sharpen your pencil, quote unquote.
That's all it is.
And in that process, you're basically deleting margin.
Yep.
And then you get through like then the company has all the power because they're essentially saying like, well, they're going to give us an hourly rate of X, and you're going to give us an hourly rate of Y. What else can you do for us?
Hmm.
Anyway, the whole process is really timely, really like it consumes a lot of bandwidth from the agency. And so Huge is now saying, forget it, we're not doing it anymore.
Hmm.
We're going to actually make 3 products based in the categories of where we get the most requests. So there's experience transformation, technology realization, and growth creation. And under each of these categories, there's specific packages that you can select in from a menu. And so we've essentially productized our offerings um, based on the most common recurring problems. And there's a set price with pre-agreed outcomes and predetermined timelines for
Right.
deliverables. So it reduces the cost for the agency because they don't have to do all these RFP pitches anymore. They also
Hmm.
went fully remote to remove office leasing costs. Um, and it allows the company to offer their talent from around the world to agents or to clients from wherever they may be. So I thought it was really interesting because
I love this.
it's a huge bet. I know they've actually reduced headcount recently, so I don't know where they're at with how successful this is, but I just thought it was an
Mhm.
interesting story because it's an attempt at solving a real problem in the agency world.
I'm with you in the context that I don't know what's actually transpired and how this is working, but the thought process I think is really good. And when I think about even the moments that we are client side and
Hmm.
we're basically running an RFP, it is exactly I want to get the best quality for the lowest cost.
Hmm.
That's what you're looking for, right? And I think that does put some of these agencies in a really precarious position because when you're giving up margin, then you're not potentially not can't pay your
Hmm.
staff as well. So then you're dealing with resourcing issues. There is probably a better way to do it. Now, if this is it, cool. The time will tell. But I still think that there's a lot still needs to be it still needs to evolve in that
Yeah,
space.
yeah. What else you got, B?
So again, for my digital marketing friends out there, especially those in the US, because you guys are lucky again, dang it. So on November 7th, so this is I guess it would have been last week, Google released their generative AI features to the Performance Max platform, to the ad platform. It's in beta, but again, it's only to US customers right now. what this does basically, it's if you recall, I think this was a few weeks ago, talk about like a lot of the platforms that are preparing for holiday season. Well, essentially, they're rolling out the ability that now all you have to do is populate your the landing page. The Let me see, what was the other. So adverts can now view and edit populated assets based on a landing page URL, and it will automatically basically suggest text and image assets for the ad
Hmm.
itself. So this, for me, again, is really important because now you're able to increase the velocity. You could probably go to market with ads.
Hmm.
There's probably going to be a whole bunch of red tape around this for many of the larger brands, though. So in terms of like what kind of image are you using, what is the right
Yeah,
message, tonality, and
sure.
whatnot. So I don't know if everyone's going to jump on this bandwagon, but I just like to see it continuously evolve. So yeah,
Hmm.
if anyone's out
Interesting.
there in the US, but
Yeah, interesting about this because in the context of light category buyers, I wonder how the Performance Max product is gonna target because it's gonna probably, I imagine, look for the heavy buyers in the moment
maybe, yeah.
because they're looking for what like ROAS or ROI.
I guess it would depend on the campaign inputs that you add. So what are you
Yeah.
trying to if you were to go against reach, maybe you'd be able to find the light buyers versus if you're trying to prioritize things like conversions or ROAS, then maybe not. That's an interesting thought.
Hmm.
I'm gonna try to find out more about this one
Yeah.
because I'm curious. Last one. What do we got?
Fast Company announced that IDEO, which
Hmm.
is a infamous design firm that basically created design thinking and then also famously created the Apple Mouse, the
Yeah.
original Apple Mouse, has experiencing layoffs and restructuring due to shift away from traditional design thinking. And
Okay.
some of the things that they're moving towards is a more agile process, or that's what companies are looking for, a more agile
Hmm.
process, external source of innovation. Um, it's kind of like a moment in time kind of story more than anything, I
Yeah,
would say.
I'm with you.
It's Yeah, it's interesting because it was design thinking has become so embedded in a lot of the things that we do
Yep.
and the process of that design thinking. So I don't, it just could mark a tough spot in the company's history right now, but I don't know that the design thinking idea and design in general is going away. Um, there's just so many more versions of it now.
Yeah, and I think it's just an evolution as well. Like you said, it's a point in time. I- I'd like to think that a lot of the principles around design thinking still apply and can apply in today's business environment. But who knows? It's I hope for the sake of everyone that's been a part of that organization, that the ones that were let go can land on their feet
Hmm.
in this very competitive environment that we're currently operating in.
Yeah.
Dun, 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 dun.
The marketing moment, V, with a case study that
Case
should
study.
highlight something really interesting in 3 to 4 minutes. Go.
Go. Here we go again. All right. So 3 to 4 minutes max. uh,
I'm
so
just
I
reading
don't.
from the sheet. That's all.
That's right. Yeah. You threw me off. God damn it. All right. As a part of Kantar's top 10 penetration powerhouses, so we highlighted Sprite a few weeks ago. This time around, I wanted to take a moment and highlight Oreo. Now,
Yeah.
I have a notorious sweet tooth, so everyone who knows me knows I am a sucker for Oreo. So this one was kind of a no brainer.
Mm.
So over the years, so it was back in 2020 when Oreo launched a new brand platform called Stay Playful.
Okay.
This campaign itself was a global brand platform that essentially was basically what's the right word here, oriented around celebrating the fun and the playful aspects of the brand that evokes memories of those family moments and things like
Sure.
that. So they've been successful not only because of this brand platform, but they're also applying the product flywheel effect. So for those that don't know, this concept is really basically describes a positive feedback loop,
Hmm.
where essentially various elements of either a product or a service reinforce each other, leading to sustained growth for the organization.
Yeah.
So because Oreo is really has dominance with their cookies or biscuits, and for our friends in the UK, uh, they're able now to introduce other categories. So a lot of their frozen treats. So
Oh.
In India specific, this is where this case study really came from. Um, they were able to increase their penetration points by 5.7,
Hmm.
which roughly coincides to 19 million new buyers.
Hmm.
So you think about the product flywheel, and then you have a really catchy, stay playful global campaign that's running at the same time. It kind of creates this great positive momentum for the brand. Now, the one thing I try to do some research around, like all the elements of the Stay Playful campaign
Hmm.
from an execution perspective, but the one thing that I found was a lot of marketing that that Oreo does revolves around three key pillars, like the social media side and the engagement, the
Hmm.
collaborations and limited editions issues of their cookies, and then just making sure that they're creating interactive campaigns. So
Hmm.
we think about like the social media engagement. You can go back in time in 2013 with the Dunk in the Dark.
Hmm.
Really became like a case study, if you will, for
Yeah.
marketers. But they were also the first to release things like the rainbow cookie.
Right.
So when you think about Oreo, they're also very good at really taking a lot of the hot topics like in society today and kind of bring them to life in
Yeah.
a either sometimes humoristic or in a very appealing way, which is good, and also shows how versatile the brand actually is. The overall results of this, so when you think about the products itself, and the expansion of the new categories, the Stay Playful global brand platform, they've been able to achieve a 93% global awareness, which
Hmm.
is insane. They were able to grow their CRP by 8%. They added 26 million new shoppers, and they were able to increase their global rank position by one.
Hmm.
Great job to everyone out there that's touched this business in some way, shape, or form. The campaign itself, the Stay Playful, was Saatchi and Saatchi that were behind it, and the media was bought by Kara UK.
Hmm.
Karat. Kara. I think it's
Carrot.
Kara.
Karat.
I don't know. I'm
Carat. That one?
that one. Yes.
Yeah, it's cool. I was thinking about that. As far as the Stay Playful platform, it's interesting just thinking about a platform. Like, because then
Yeah.
that's one of the things I get excited about. Like, how can you bring that idea to life
Totally.
in different places, in different formats, and in different um, like versions of that, like through advertising, through product, and all those things. That's
Yeah.
cool. It's an interesting story.
I
Q
want
and
an
A.
Oreo cookie now. So.
Yeah, right. Q and A. V. I got a interesting question from a guy I met with last week, Will,
Mhm.
who asked, "Where do I find leads?" And it's a really, on the surface level, I'm like, well, they're everywhere. But it's a really interesting question because it kind of speaks to the channel selection of where you find leads, whether in B2B or sales, or customers if you're in B2C. Um, and it's something that's come up for sure over time. So I just wanted to kind of like have a quick conversation with you about this. In terms of channel
Feels like
choice,
this
how
one's
do you pick
yeah.
the channels where to find the best source of leads and sales?
I feel like this is a rabbit hole question because there's so many different elements to this. So here's what I will always do when I think about, hey, where's my highest propensity to buy or to find consumers. I'll always try to apply an intent lens the first. So where are people
Right,
showing intent on my potential product or service?
right,
Now, that could be things like Google search is probably the first one that comes to mind. But if
yeah,
we're taking into B2B context, it could be things like trade shows. It could be things like that are
right,
more industry relevant. So I wouldn't have that aperture right now to really analyze. But let's for lack of better example, let's just assume that there's a lot of people showing intent through engaging in videos and potentially, search. So
yeah,
for me, those would be two platforms I would look at immediately and try to find, well, what is that? What does that audience look like? So what's
yeah,
the opportunity that exists there? and then start catering content and ads against that.
Right.
But that's only one part of it, right?
Right.
That's the almost like the, if we use the 595% rule, that's like your 5% that
Right.
you're able to potentially look through that intent lens. Then you would shift gears, in my opinion at least, and try to address that 95%, which is outside of who's looking to purchase today.
Right.
And I think that's where it becomes a lot more convoluted and a little more difficult, because it can become as big as your
Mhm.
pockets can carry, or it can become really small because, again, you don't have the budgets.
Right.
So I don't know. I apply an intent lens first, I think is what I would recommend, and then start building out from there.
Yeah. Yeah, it's an interesting, it's a good approach. I like that. I think, in the intent lens, there's tools like Zoom Info where you can download high intent purchase data from, or,
Hmm.
or like personal data, email, phone numbers, that kind of thing, and create lists. And there's other tools and platforms that do that. There's also, like on G2, you can get intent data, like people who've done comparison shopping on G2,
Hmm.
from a B2B perspective, where it says, a product like mine versus people who shop for other products in this category. And so you can get
Right.
intent data that way as well. The other one I would say is like buyers or shoppers are people.
Mm.
And, people spend time with media.
That's
And so
true.
things like YouTube, um, might not be able to target the same way on YouTube that you can on LinkedIn, let's say.
That's true.
Right? Like on YouTube, it's good because you've got, let's say, 93% reach on a whole
Hmm.
population.
Hmm.
LinkedIn maybe less, but on LinkedIn you could target by a job function or job title, of which there are many versions and iterations. So you have to be careful on how limited you are on that.
Yeah.
But on YouTube, you could use all kinds of other things. You can layer in search uh, keywords into
Hmm.
YouTube targeting. I
Hmm.
would say in general though, like the creative is the thing that will help you target the most to people wherever they may be on the channels where they may be. And the contextual targeting you thought was good. It was a good idea. There's also things in programmatic where you can draw polygons on people who visited specific areas or have been visiting
Yeah.
a place of work is this building here.
Yeah.
Anybody who lives
Yeah.
in this building here.
Yeah.
There's all kinds of ways to do this, and I think it's not a it's almost a question of which channels do we not use because we don't have enough budget,
Yeah.
because you can reach people anywhere.
Yeah. That's a great point. That's a great point.
So anyway, it was a good question. Thanks, Will.
Ad of the week. Ad of the week. Ad of the
Ad
week.
of the week. Ad of the week. Okay, so this one, we'll put a link in. There's a really there's an interesting thing in the UK, uh, and that we talked about. Well, actually we've talked about this a couple times throughout this podcast. But Snap. So John Lewis is a department store in the UK, and in the UK they have, like, Christmas ads are almost like Super Bowl ads. And so John Lewis and Partners had this Christmas ad called Snapper, the Perfect Tree. It's basically a um, what's that? A Venus flytrap.
Venus flytrap. Yeah.
Yeah, so they did this commercial with the Venus flytrap that grows up, and it's like this monster of a thing, and it's this kid's best friend. And he ends up being destructive, and they put him outside, and then there's a fun ending, and I won't spoil that for anyone who wants to watch it. But anyway, it was a
Yeah.
cool ad, and so,
It's
I,
awesome.
yeah, what'd you think of it?
I loved it. I loved it because it was a different take. Because like it really zooms in. This kid's in a department store, and it finds a little box that says the perfect Christmas tree, right? So, and there's a little
Right.
seed in it. So then it goes through the process of how he grows this tree, right? But turns
Hmm.
out to be like a Venus flytrap that just like eats everything.
Hmm.
I won't like you. I'm not going to spoil it, but I think it was a different take of what you would naturally expect,
Hmm.
from a Christmas spot, but it still has all of the Christmas feels,
Hmm.
right? So personally, I thought it landed really well, and I thought it was a really, really creative approach to
Hmm.
something traditional as a Christmas tree.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. The other thing that I thought was interesting about it is that they actually sell a whole bunch of merch. related to Snapper, the perfect tree. And so if you go
Oh,
online
that's
to
good.
John
Yeah.
Lewis online, you can buy like
Ugly
stuffies, you can
Christmas
buy
story.
ornaments, you can buy books, you can buy pajamas, you can buy slipper, like all those things that go along with Christmas morning. Um, all that stuff is things you can buy based on an ad.
You know what? Like, there's a part of me that I almost prefer the way the UK does it in the sense, like, their Super Bowl ads or Christmas because it has to appeal to such a large audience.
Hmm.
Whereas I think something like the Super Bowl, it really caters to one audience that's actually watching the game. Yes, as marketers, everyone's probably watching the ads, but like it's a little bit different in terms of the overall appeal.
Hmm.
Um, but
Well,
anyways, yeah,
it makes sense, like especially because retail is such a like Q4
that's
is
true.
huge.
Yeah,
So, like, doubling down on investments during that period make a ton of sense. Whereas
yeah.
in timing wise, Super Bowl, like there's
It's like,
whatever the number is, like 3 billion people that watch, half the planet watches the Super Bowl, which is awesome, but they
yeah,
may not all be buying right then.
yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point.
V, what do you got coming up?
Well, next week we're releasing our conversation with Eddie Obang on building and maintaining essentially high performance organizations through these I guess remote settings. I know he has his Cube platform that is really great. So we get into some of the nitty gritty around just building high performance organizations.
Yeah, it was a super interesting conversation.
So much energy in that episode.
Yeah.
So much energy. It was great.
Yeah. It was great. Well, thanks, Eddie. We'll definitely let you know about that one too when it comes out.
Yeah,
All right, V. That's
that's
it.
it. All right.
Short and sweet.
Yeah, buddy. So till next week.
It's chase profitability.
There it
Is that
is.
the one?
That's the one. Oh, that's amazing.
It's usually you that does that. It's the first time I've said that coming out of my mouth.
Well, it should be universal. That's why I put you on the spot.
Oh,
It's our thing. It's not my
It
thing.
is our thing.
Our thing. All right. See you in the next one.
Okay, take it easy, buddy.
Bye.